Hello, my darling friends. I hope that you are having an amazing day. Let's just jump right into this fire. There is not much that will launch me into savage bitch mode, like being told what I should do. Nothing makes my head want to explode quite like somebody coming out with, you know what you should do? You know what you should do? I'm not going to say it, but sit down. Because we all have our own paths to walk in this life. We all have our own lessons to learn in this life. We all have karma that we are working through. And we don't actually know if it comes from this life, if it comes from past lives, if it comes from ancestral lessons, right? We learn a lot, even subconsciously, from our parents who've learned from their parents, and so on and so forth. And a lot of it is carried forward. And at a certain point in life, hopefully we realize, you know what? All due respect to my parents, to my grandparents, to my great grandparents, but this needs to stop. This needs to end here. And you realize that it's time to stop making choices that are consistent with the way that your family has been doing things because the outcome hasn't been so great. There's a lot of examples. And by all means, I encourage you to drop me an email with some of your examples and how do I get out of this cycle? Because I would love to talk about that. But let's go back to shoulds. And I love saying, stop shoulding all over me. You know what you should do? You should stop telling people what they should do because you don't actually know. So let's kind of go through a few of those examples, starting with you should go to college. I don't know. Yes, for some, it depends what you want to do. It depends what you want to be in life, what path you want to take. I mean, do I see value in college, generally speaking, for structure? If you want to be an entrepreneur, or is there a lot of value there? Yes. I've also seen a lot of people come out of college with a lot of unnecessary, like, did you need to have 50, 75, $100,000 worth of debt and student loans? I don't know. I did not go to college. I found my own way. I started in hospitality. I gained great success in hospitality. Lord only knows where I could be now if I had stayed in it, but I have no regrets. My path was not guided by money. Pause. Do you need money to live? Yes, you do. Am I a supporter of finding your way, follow your passion, and most importantly, align with what your purpose is as a human being in this life? I absolutely do. I believe that there is a balance, 100%. But going to college for me, listen, I have the equivalent probably close to a master's degree in classical yogic studies, in studies of the mystics, 100%. Would I have gotten that in a university? Listen, when college was the option for me, that was definitely not presented as an option. Did I make a life and a career for myself teaching yoga, teaching workshops, leading international retreats, leading teacher trainings? Yes, I absolutely did. I raised 3 children. I owned my own home. I did all of those things. And now I actually have the opportunity and the experience of fusing together my yoga and my A-list hospitality experience. I didn't go to college. For some people, it's the right path. For others, it isn't. One of my sons is in American University, Florence, in a culinary program. Is it traditional college? Absolutely not. Are there trade schools? Absolutely. What do you want to do? Who are you as an individual? What works for you as an individual? I hear so many young people still having that you should go to college dumped on them. And for a lot of you, yes, absolutely. That is the path. You need to take that path. You want to go into business. You want to go into finance. You want to be an attorney or a doctor or any number of professions. You absolutely need a college degree. But there are many other paths in life. And I have to tell you, there is no easy path. There really is not an easy path. I don't believe that life is supposed to be easy. So be very mindful when you're following the shoulds, how you should live your life. Because I also know lots of people who went to college that don't use that degree that does absolutely nothing for them. So please, let's not get crazy. Cher is not saying you shouldn't go to college. I'm not saying you should or should not anything. I am suggesting that you don't follow the shoulds, that you really consider who you are as an individual. And I don't think at a young age we really actually know what that looks like. I think when we're young, it's a time to make mistakes. It's a time to try things on and see if it fits and see if it feels good and see if it works instead of banging our head against a wall. If you're having to bang your head against a wall, pivot. And you're going to make lots and lots and lots of pivots in life. You know, I beat myself up often that I'm 53 years old. I should already be established in my professional path. Well, I've been established in 2 professional paths. And here I am at 53, having relocated, having made a huge life shift, change, pivot, and now starting from scratch, saying, okay, even last year I took a position that because I should, because it's what I should do. It was completely below my value and my abilities and what I could do. So whether you're young and you're just starting out in adulting, what you should do, or whether you're like me in your midlife, what you should do, stop shoulding all over me. Life is a journey. It's a lot of pivots. It's a lot of changes. It's a lot of doing something, getting the outcome, and saying that works. This part of it works. This part of it doesn't. Let's fine tune it. Let's refine. There is no one way, one path of doing things. Here's another one. I have my little notepad here of all of the shoulds, and there's really so many. I had to go through it and be like, okay, let's calm down, because I get really heated with the shoulds. Okay. You should have a 9-to-5 job with a 401k and long-term security. Let me tell you something. There are certain life designs that do not fit certain people. The hospitality lifestyle most certainly does not fit many people. For me, sitting in an office 9 to 5, for many people that works. For me, I want to stick needles in my eyes. It is so not my design of who I am. And I mean, does 9 to 5 actually even really exist anymore? I suppose it does, but this is where it gets, okay, yes, find a path that speaks to you, that lights you up. And again, yes, we need money to live. I do hear a lot of people right now saying things like, it doesn't really matter how much I earn, I just need to follow my passion. Well, except for that, it does. You do have to provide for yourself. You do have to pay rent or pay a mortgage. You do have to buy groceries. You need gas for your car, and you have to pay. You need to be able to live and support yourself. And what type of job you have isn't the only place that comes into play. And I'll get into that further. But the fact of the matter is that we are each, as individuals, responsible for our personal health, for our personal happiness, for our well-being, for our ability to provide for ourselves. That is each of our individual responsibility. Listen, there is a major difference in times in your life needing a hand up and always having a hand out. I've hit a rocky road. When you need a hand up, I've hit a rocky road and I need some help and I need some support, and it's going to get me back on track to where I need to be. That's one thing. Having a handout is entitlement. Put that shit away. That is not a thing. Nobody is entitled to anything in this life. And I am sorry if that pisses you off, but it is actual and it is factual. Are you entitled to having kindness in your life? Are you entitled to having, peaceful, happy relationships? Absolutely. I don't know that that's entitlement, though. I think that that's just actually humanity. So going back to the 9 to 5, 401k, stability in your life, we live in such a wonderfully creative world. There are so many options and so many opportunities for you. The fact of the matter is that it takes hard work. And having the grit and having the endurance and having passion in what you want to do. And yes, maybe it means you work a second job as you're building your business, as you're building your reputation, as you're establishing your expertise. That is actually how life goes. But I can't really truly tell you guys how many times it has been said to me, especially in my single mom years, you should just get a 9 to 5 job and stop, with all of this yoga stuff. Like that, seriously, it's disrespectful to tell somebody what they should do. Listen, having people around that you can vent to the challenges and the struggles that you're having in life, and having somebody be a sounding board, having somebody to say, you know what, if this is the path that you're taking and you're committed to, and I believe in you, and you keep going, you keep fighting the good fight. That's a lot of value, as opposed to saying, well, you know what you should do? You should just stop stressing and working so hard and just go and get yourself a 9 to 5 job. That's not being supportive of somebody. So that's another one that really just doesn't land right. The next one was, and this is really big for women especially, you should, by a certain age, be married and have children. If I could drop my mic off of this arm, just drop it and walk away, because I think that is not so much the thing anymore. Now, listen, I have very traditional values, as a matter of fact. I really, truly do. But you should get married and have kids. For me, that's not the order it happened in. I had my son, and then I married his father, because that's what I should do. And I got so much pressure that I should get married when it wasn't actually what I wanted to do. And I don't know that he wanted to marry me either. We just were so wrapped up in the shoulds. Now we had a child. And listen, we both really made the best go of it that we could. We immediately had our second son. There has never been anything that I have loved or wanted more in my whole entire life than my children. And as a matter of fact, when I found out that I was pregnant with my first son, it was very early in the relationship. It was a major against the odds surprise. And he was actually the very first man that I fully committed to. I mean, he wasn't a man yet, he was an embryo, but you know what I'm saying. Prior to that, I never really committed to any long-term relationship. But when I found out that I was expecting him, there was no question in my mind that I wanted him. Flat out, this is what I was doing. But I didn't have these fantasies in my mind of I want to get married and I want to have children. It really actually it wasn't something that I ever thought about. But I did succumb to the shoulds in the marriage. And, getting married, having children, guys, I don't know what the right relationship model is. I don't believe that anybody knows. I do believe that from experience and from observation, all that I really believe, and I'm not going to say I know because, who really actually knows anything? I really hang my hat very much on this I don't know shit because I don't, because it just all keeps changing. But what I do feel very strongly about is when you choose to have a family, when you choose to have children, both parties equally are responsible for raising that children. Both parties are responsible for providing for and supporting the family. Because here's what I see happen. And it really is hard because I see a lot of people going into, younger people are looking more at traditional marriage family values. And I love that. I do. I love that so much. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen women get to a point where their kids are grown up and they're saying, what now? I have no skills. I've stayed home. I've provided for my family. My husband is super successful in his career, and it dumps them into a depression, of a place that's very, very lost. And God forbid it ends in divorce, which oftentimes happens, which is very, very sad. A lot of women are left fighting for every single little penny that they're going to get. And it's ugly for both parties, not just for the women, but for the men also. So you should get married and you should have children by a certain age and stage. And that kind of leads into, and this is definitely an antiquated one, I believe, in these days, but it wasn't when I was having kids. You should support your family as the mother and support your partner so they can go out and earn and provide for the family. Again, I'm pretty sure that's an antiquated mindset. For me, that one took me out. It totally took me out. I have been married and divorced twice, and both times I tried to put my husband's needs, professional needs, ahead of my own. And both times I was the one fighting for my life. I was the one having to restart my professional life. And it just didn't work out. And I truly feel that there needs to be some kind of balance in relationships, in marriage, especially when you start having children, when you start having homes and you're creating this life and this family together. It's not an easy thing to do, but you should be married by a certain age and you should, and it's really hard because I can say for me as a woman and as a mother, for me, this is not saying anyone should feel the same or have the same values. My inclination, my natural inclination is very much to protect and to mother and to parent my children. That is me. That is how I am. But I also needed, for me, because of how I am, I needed to have a balance beyond, separate from being a mother. I am very much very much and. I am a great mother. My children are thriving. They are doing wonderful. They are, without question, my priorities in this life. But I learned that, and I learned the hard way, that if I wasn't strong and happy and established and grounded in other fulfilling areas of my life, I wasn't the best possible version of myself to model for my children. And I went through some very dark, depressing times as a mother with my children. And I had to let them see that. And I had to be very honest with them and explain to them what was going on with me. Because who knows what they're going to go through in their own lives. And I wanted them to know There are times in life that are very hard and very difficult to navigate through, and that's just human. And prioritizing yourself, even as a parent, even as a partner in a relationship, is the way to best be there for those areas of your life. So, I followed the shoulds of you should get married because you're having children, and it didn't work out. So, one way or another, we had to figure out how to parent our children together collaboratively. And wouldn't it be wonderful if people could go into marriages with that mindset? Should you choose to get married, choose to get married. I chose, because of the shoulds, to live a suburban life and to put my husband's careers ahead of my own. And, the suburban life design is not for me. It's for many people. But that's, again, where the shoulds become a slippery slope. I should have the house with the garden, with the 3 kids, with the dog in the suburbs. And it really, it broke me. It was the second time I was living an imposter syndrome, because it's just not who I am. When I was expecting my first son, I was living in Brooklyn, and I was very, very happy in Brooklyn, and I didn't want to move out to the suburbs, but it's what his father wanted to do, and it's what he felt was needed to be able to provide for and support us as a family, and none of it worked out because we were following the shoulds. So those are just a couple of my life examples. And I already touched on the one, by a certain age, you should have it all figured out. And I really, that's just really not a freaking thing. Life is a journey, and there are many seasons of the journey of your life. And there are seasons that things are going to come to you easily. And there are seasons that are going to be a dirty internal street fight, figuring out who you are, fighting who you believe you should be, who you're told you should be, what you're told you should be doing, and what actually feels right. And then you're going to come up on what we live so frequently in is fear, because all of those shoulds, which are mind, are going to come up against your soul, the essence of who you are, that's pulling you in a direction. And this is where the dirty internal street fight starts to happen, is the mind, which is just mind, and it's completely malleable. But your soul is your programmed DNA. That's your purpose. That's what's dropped into this physical body that wants you to go and be in service and work through karma and lessons and have this human experience. But your mind is going to come up, and your mind is going to say, no, I should do this, and I should do this, and I should do this. And your soul is going to be pushing you in another direction. And then we call it fear, because that's what I really believe fear is. I'm not talking about the fear that you feel when you're getting chased by, a wild animal or somebody down a dark alley. That's a fight or flight. That's a survival mode fear. But we do put ourselves into survival mode in our brains, in that antiquated, I'll get the words out, and antiquated reptilian portion of the brain that lives in survival mode. And it's so interesting because that's the part of the brain that will follow the shoulds. It won't follow the feels of what feels right to you. And what feels right doesn't always make sense. But what makes sense is mind. For those of you who are listening and not watching, I'm doing air quotes. What makes sense is mind. And it's completely malleable. And that's kind of my point to all of these shoulds. What is right for one person, what one person believes you should do, is a program. It's not actually a thing. It's mind, and mind can be changed. And following what feels right is, we call it scary, because following what feels right, I want to make this abundantly clear. it doesn't always mean that if you follow what feels right, you are going to, everything is going to be easy. That's not true. It will, although, eventually guide you into the path of least resistance. So, what I mean by it's not going to be easy and it will guide you into the path of least resistance, that sounds like two contradicting statements, but it's really actually not. Hang out with me here. When you follow where you feel you should go, it very often will guide you into a life experience that is going to be a test, that is going to say, are you going to choose the same that you've chosen time and time again that hasn't worked out? Are you going to play it safe, or are you going to choose different, which is going to be uncomfortable? Because how comfortable is a comfort zone really? It's not comfortable. It's just the habit zone. It's the pattern zone. And that's what keeps you on the hamster wheel. But this is where we will be pulled in one direction, but then our mind will say to us, no, that doesn't make any sense. And we jam ourselves up because we keep doing the same thing on repeat. And then we're following societal norms of the shoulds. And then we keep flexing our way through life, winding up, banging our head against a wall. And it's just, I don't believe, and I'm not making absolute statements here. I'm just sharing with you what I believe based on my own life experiences and based on what I've observed and the thousands of conversations people have had with me in spiritual life, evolutionary context, literally thousands of conversations. And people will say, like, why when I start pursuing these evolutionary or spiritual processes, does it feel like everything starts to fall down around me? Because I believe very strongly that when you follow the shoulds, and I've observed this, you're building a house of cards on top of quicksand. And then you realize at some point of life crisis, this is not working for me. And it's like a strong breeze is going to hit that house of cards and it's going to fall down because it's not on a solid foundation. It's built on quicksand. And that's what the shoulds are. They're building a foundation of quicksand. Instead of following the energy that's pulling you in a direction and having faith in the process, having faith that when you follow what feels right, and I know I'm being repetitive at this point, and I'm repetitive often because I want you to really understand this. It doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy path. It means that there is a really valuable evolutionary process for you there that is going to get you to where you're going, which will eventually lead into the path of least resistance. Now, my hope for you and my point in this episode is to have faith and trust yourself. Start exercising your ability to trust yourself. Start exercising your courage to trust yourself. Your ability to be vulnerable. Because that's what happens oftentimes when we follow the shoulds. We're not willing to be vulnerable. But vulnerability is a strength. It's not a weakness. It's very much a strength. So listen, I don't know if you're supposed to go to college or not. I don't know if you are designed for a 9 to 5, and if that suits you so beautifully, and that's your lane, and that's where you can be of the greatest service. I don't know if you are supposed to be a stay-at-home mom or dad. I don't know what your design is. And I'm not telling you by any stretch of the imagination that there isn't value in doing any of those things. What I am saying is it's for some, it's not for others, it's not right, it's not wrong. There is no one way to do things. So if you have been told that the way to live life is to go to college, to get the 9 to 5 job, to meet the partner, to get married, to have children by a certain age, to have it all figured out by a certain age, I'm calling bullshit. And I'm encouraging you to, when people say, I did learn when people would say to me, you know what you should do, to tamp down my savage bitch that wants to come out and say, well, you know what you should do? You should just shut up. I, I stopped saying that. And I learned to yes people, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you so much. Just because I needed to get out of the conversation. And I don't need to argue or debate with anybody what's best for me in my life. If what I'm doing for me isn't working for you, you don't have to hang around. That's okay. I respect that. And I don't say that in a spiteful way by any stretch of the imagination. Very oftentimes, people come into our lives for a reason and for a season, and then they float out of it. And it doesn't have to be a contentious break in the relationship. Nobody has to be vilified. It's just we're not aligned anymore. But there isn't a life path that is written by society that you need to follow. So I guess my big picture my what I want to offer you as a takeaway from this episode is give yourself permission to follow the path that feels right for you, to know that there is no one right way to do things, to know that you're going to make choices. You're going to get the outcome of those choices. Some of the outcome is going to be great, and some of it is going to have lessons. It's not going to feel so great. Sometimes you're going to get into flow, and that's going to feel fabulous. And sometimes it's going to be a rocky road. Sometimes you're going to feel like you know exactly where you're going, and sometimes there is going to be an internal battle. But learn to trust yourself. Trust the feels, trust yourself, trust what comes from within, not what everyone else is telling you you should do. And it's totally okay to say to somebody, I need you to stop shitting all over me. So that's all I've got for you today. I love you so much. Again, please feel free to email me, hello@chermelly.com. There is nothing on the other side of that but me. And I love to hear from you. And I hope you're having the best day. And I hope that you get into that flow state. It's a wonderful place to be. So ciao for now. I'll see you next time. Thank you for being here with me. If something in this episode stirred clarity, discomfort, or recognition, let it. You don't need to rush to resolve it. Integration happens in its own time. And don't forget the mini-sodes. They offer simple yet practical tools to help you integrate what we explore here. Now, if you're navigating a season of transition in relationships, identity shifts, or decisions that call for clarity, grounded perspective, and honest reflection, I do work privately with a small number of women. That information is in the show notes if and when it feels right for you. And if there's a situation you're wrestling with and want a fresh, real life, no bullshit, ride or die best friend perspective on, you're welcome to email me at hello@chermelly.com. I read every message, and I'll do my best to explore it in a future episode or companion minisode. Now, if this resonated, please follow, like, subscribe, and definitely share it with someone who might need to hear it. Take good care of yourself. I'll meet you back here soon. With love, ciao for now.